people. Mr. Speaker, many people welcomed the powerful points the Prime Minister made when she was first appointed about burning injustices in Britain. Does she agree with me that access to justice is vital in order to tackle burning injustices?
Prime Minister.
Can I say to the right honourable gentleman that there are many burning injustices that can be tackled in a variety of ways, and that is the action that I have taken, not just as Prime Minister, but also as Home Secretary. And I'll give him one example: the race disparity audit, which shines a light on inequality in public services. A race disparity audit which shines a light on inequality in public services is enabling us to put into place action that helps to ensure that people across this country, whatever their background, will ensure that they have access to the public services they need.
Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, this year marks the 70th anniversary of the Legal Aid and Advice Act. That act, introduced by the post-war Labour government, gave all people access to justice, not just the rich, and was an essential pillar of a welfare state and a decent society. The Tory Lib Dem coalition slashed legal aid in 2013, and the results are clearly very unfair. The number of law centres and other not-for-profit legal aid providers has more than halved. There are now legal aid deserts across the whole country. Does the Prime Minister think that has helped or hindered the fight against burning injustices?
Prime Minister.
The point that I was making to the right honourable gentleman, and that he seems to fail to recognise, is that the whole question of burning injustices is not about just access to the legal system. The question of dealing with burning... It's all very well members of the opposition benches from shouting about this. If the Labour Party actually really cared about burning injustices, they'd have done a darn sight more when they were in power to deal with them.
Mr. Speaker, some people have very short memories. It was the Tory... It's all right, it's okay. It's all right, it's okay. The Tory Lib Dem coalition cut legal aid, but also brought in fees for employment tribunals. The then Minister for Employment Relations, the Honourable Member for East Dunbartonshire, piloted that through the House. But since that time, my union, Unison, took the government to court and won, and as a result, employment fees were cancelled. The cuts to legal aid affect people, Mr. Speaker, like Marcus. Like Marcus, a 71-year-old on pension credit, a leaseholder who is threatened with being evicted. And he says, and I quote, "I've paid taxes and national insurance all my life. How is it right that I'm being bullied and threatened with homelessness? The state won't protect me." And he goes on to say, "I've been working to 2 a.m. every night for the past 6 months, collecting evidence. I've got no idea if I've prepared my evidence correctly." Doesn't Marcus, trying to save his own home, deserve legal aid to get proper representation in a court and be fairly heard?
The Prime Minister.
The right honourable gentleman. Obviously, I recognise the concerns that Marcus has about taking his case. But the right honourable gentleman might reflect on the fact that a quarter of the Ministry of Justice's budget is spent on legal aid. We spent £1.6 billion on legal aid last year. We're committing to ensuring that people can access the help they need into the future. But that is only one part of the picture. We've published a plan for legal support to maintain and improve access to support for those in need. And we're conducting a fundamental review of criminal legal aid fee schemes, which will consider criminal legal aid throughout the life cycle of a criminal case. So there are aspects of this issue that we are indeed looking at. But I think it is important that we ensure that we are careful with the provisions that we make for legal aid. And as I say, a quarter of the Ministry of Justice budget is spent on legal aid.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, just so everyone's aware of it, Labour is committed to restoring legal aid funding for family law for family law, for housing, for benefit appeals, for judicial review preparation, for inquests and real action on immigration cases. And as we announced yesterday, we will end the leasehold scandal. The Department of Work and Pensions is failing disabled people. The Ministry of Justice spent tens of millions of pounds each year defending appeals, over 2/3 of which were won by the claimants. Rather than spending millions defending incorrect and often immoral decisions, wouldn't that money have been better used increasing poverty-level benefits and providing legal aid to disabled people wrongly denied their basic dignity?
Prime Minister.
I'm not going to take any lectures from right honourable gentlemen on what this government has done for disabled people. We are committed to tackling the injustices that are facing disabled people, so everyone can go as far as their talents will take them. Our spending on support for disabled people and people with health conditions is at a record high. We are seeing many more people, over 900,000 more disabled people in work as a result of what this government has done. But if the right honourable gentleman is really interested in tackling injustices, then the biggest injustice he should tackle is in his own Labour Party and deal with anti-Semitism.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, my party is totally committed to eliminating racism in any form, anti-Semitism in any form. And while she is about the lecturing, how about the investigation into Islamophobia in her own party?
Order, Mr. Bowie. You are as noisy as your illustrious late namesake David Bowie, but sadly nothing like as melodic, my dear chap. Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, one lecture she might not want to take from me, but she might care to listen to what the United Nations said when they, and I quote, condemned the UK government for its grave and systematic violation of the rights of disabled people. The Windrush scandal has resulted in the government having to allocate £200 million in compensation to people wrongly deported from this country, denied services and their lives totally pulled apart. People have given their life to this country and our services. Does the Prime Minister think that scandal would have happened if legal aid had not been slashed by the government, so many of those people were denied any representation in court?
Well, the right honourable gentleman really needs to think rather more carefully about his arguments. Let's look about the issue of people in the Windrush generation. I've apologised for what happened to people in the Windrush generation. I've been very clear that they are British, they are here, they have a right to be here, and these should not have happened. We've apologised for the mistakes that have been made. But he raises issues about people who were incorrectly deported. The initial historical review has found that there were around 11,800 detentions and removals, which they looked at. They identified 18 people who were most likely to have been wrongly deported or removed. Of those, 6 were removed or detained under the last Labour government. And I say to the right honourable gentleman, the way he talks, you would think he was a man of principle. But what do we actually see from him? Labour policy is to ban non-disclosure agreements, but his staff have to sign them. He was an anti-racist, now he ignores anti-Semitism. He's been a Eurosceptic all his life, now he backs Remain. He's truly living up to the words of Marx. Those are my principles, and if you don't like them, I've got others. Right honourable gentleman's keen to get to the dispatch box when the name Marx is identified. I was merely going to point out to him those were the words not of Karl, but of Groucho.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Coming from the Prime Minister who created the hostile environment which brought about the Windrush scandal, who ordered go-home vans wants to drive around London, who refuses to acknowledge Islamophobia in her own party, and whose party consorts with racists and anti-Semites in the European Parliament and sucks up to those governments across Europe. We don't need those kind of lectures. One legal aid firm, Mr. Speaker, one legal aid firm said, we see more people more desperate and in more extreme need than they were 5 years ago. There is nowhere to send them. Those people are invisible to the system. This is a denial of people's basic rights. The UN says legal aid cuts have overwhelmingly affected the poor and people with disabilities. Without equal access to justice, there is no justice. Today, in modern Britain, millions are denied justice because they don't have the money. Isn't that a disgrace? Isn't that a burning injustice?
Prime Minister.
Right, honourable gentleman, he may do his best to ignore the anti-Semitism in his party, but I think he should listen. I think he should listen to the words of the former Labour Party General Secretary, the noble Lord Treesman, who said, "We may one day be the party of anti-racism once again, but it certainly isn't today." He has asked questions about injustice. Let me tell him about an injustice. It's an injustice when you force people who are working hard day and night to earn an income for their family to pay more taxes because of a Labour Party economic policy in government that has led to the destruction of our economy. What do we see from the Labour Party? You earn more, they want you to pay more tax. You buy a home, they want you to pay more tax. You want to leave something to your children, they want you to pay more tax. Labour's £9 billion family tax. Labour used to have a slogan of education, education, education. Now it's just tax, tax,